And it's a good thing in getting back to online after a long time also becoming difficult.
Not something I press the bell.
Yes, and today's event, India's emerging role in evolving global dynamics. Before I come to the event, the people are still logging in. We got another for 3-4 minutes to go. Let me briefly telling you what's happening at MMA. Most important event which is happening is the 26th. We have by Karunagaran. The event is happening at Salem. Then on 27th, we have a full day seminar on data trust imperative, technology governance, and the future of data protection. It's a full day conclave which we are doing at MMA, and we have got some outstanding experts to come and speak what all the way the various organizations and corporates should look at this Data Protection Act and how they have to prepare themselves in terms of various rules, regulations, and information technology, how to use it, and what all the various penalty in case they are following. We have got a very outstanding session. Please don't miss it. It's happening at MMA Management Center, and maybe it will go live also. We have got about 150 nominations for this. It's a program which is happening at MMA only for the members. Then on 27th September, we have another event, Find Your Purpose, Productivity. It's happening in Indian Foundryman. Then on 8th of October, we have 6th of October, we have another good event, discussion on the book Being Ordinary, Doing Extraordinary Things. We have again outstanding speakers, Mr. Ramdurai, former Vice Chairman of and CEO of TCS, Mahalingam, former CFO of TCS, Lakshmi Narayanan, Vice Chancellor of Kriya University, Ravi Sunathan, MD of Managing Director of TVS Supply Chain, Rajini Sheshatri, the founder of an event India, Parna, and Vinod Krishnan is MD and CEO of TVS Next, and Vaidya Subramaniam, Vice Chancellor of thing. We are going to have a very lovely discussion. It's happening on 26th October in person at Narayanan Center. Then next day, again, we have an excellent event on 9th of October. This, along with MMA and Great Institute of Management, a conclave on creating entrepreneurial families. Because today we found the entrepreneurship is though thriving, the family structure is not happening as expected, and why there's a psyche among the subsequent children, subsequent generation, what are the very issues. We have some again an outstanding panel. Mr. C.K. Ranganathan will be delivering the masterclass at 45 minutes address, followed by some outstanding speakers. I don't want to take the big list. The note is already given. This we are doing it jointly with Great Lake Institute of Management. Again, on the same evening, 9th of October in the evening, we have Rethinking Rewards, Building Competitive and Sustainable People Practice in Changing Business Landscape. This we are doing it jointly with Mercer. Mercer will bring in the international perspective. This happening 6 o'clock to outstanding speaker from Mercer. Along with them, the corporate leaders will be talking to us. Then we have Read and Go series on 15th of October. Then on 23rd of October, again, we have an outstanding international speaker. Alex Austin is the founder of Strategizer. He's coming from Switzerland. He's going to be talking to us on establishing entrepreneurial and decision makers. And this is how to make leaders out of entrepreneurs. This is happening. Then we have a management student convention on 27th of October. We have lots of events lined up, and now coming to today's event, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you the format of the event. As usual, you have any questions, please log on to the number or just Mentimeter. All give the number which shared on the screen. Just send us the question. We'll collate all the question. I only request you the question should be relevant to the topic which is being discussed today. The format of the event today is I'll request the President MMA to deliver the formal welcome address. Thereafter, Satyamurthy, who is a knowledge partner for the session, will give opening remarks. I'll request Mr. Narayanan will be delivering the keynote address. We all know you're all eagerly looking forward to that. Then thereafter, we have a special address by three outstanding specialists in the field, and we have Mr. Srikanth Kondapalli will go first, and then followed by Nandan, followed by Indrani. If Indrani comes, then Indrani will go, followed by Nandan. Then we will have a very lively Q&A session. You can send all your questions, and people who are here on Zoom can send your questions. We'll try and pick it up. Good evening, madam. Welcome, Indrani. I know you got stuck.
Hi, I'm so sorry.
On time. Not at all. Not at all. And Mr. Srikanth Kondapalli, welcome to you. And it's so pleasure to have you with us. Then we have a Q&A, and we'll end the seminar at 7:45, 8 o'clock. That's the thing. Now, without any further ado, now I request Mr. Lakshman Swami. He's the Managing Director of Sundaram Finance. He's also the President of Madras Management Association. May I request Mr. Lax to please deliver the formal welcome address. Over to you, Lax.
Thank you. Thank you, Group Captain. Good evening, all of you. And it's indeed my privilege to deliver this formal welcome address at this very special occasion, a virtual discussion on the theme, India's emerging role in evolving global dynamics. which is a topical issue on every Indian's mind right now. I thank Policy Matters for collaborating with MMA in organizing this program with the support of CAS. It is my pleasure indeed to welcome this evening Mr. M.K. Narayanan, former Governor of West Bengal and former National Security Advisor, Ambassador Madhusudan Ganapathy, IFS retired, former Ambassador to Kuwait and High Commissioner to Mauritius, Dr. Srikanth Kondapalli, Professor, Center for East Asian Studies, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and Ms. Indrani Bagchi, Chief Executive Officer, Ananta Center. I take this opportunity to welcome all the participants from MMA, Policy Matters, and all other partner organizations who have joined us online through various MMA social media portals. For the benefit of those guests and invitees from other organizations, it gives me pleasure that MMA, which was established in 1956, has evolved today as the largest management association in the country, with over 8,000 members spread across 12 chapters in Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry. MMA has been awarded the Best Management Association in the country for 15 times in a row, including the latest year 2024-25. India's emergence as a key player in the evolving global order has gained significant emphasis after its decisive victory in Operation Sindoor, showcasing the technological prowess, strategic agility, and the spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat. This operation marked a watershed shift from the strategic resistance to confident offensive deterrence. This confidence is equally reflected in India's sovereign choices, such as continuing oil imports from Russia despite global pressure, and in its growing leadership role within SCO, BRICS, and the Global South. India today stands not just as a balancing power, but as a leading shaper of the future international system. With eminent leaders of policy and diplomacy amongst us this evening, I'm certain that the deliberations will provide deep understanding and insights and meaningful takeaways to all the participants. I once again thank my colleagues from the Managing Committee, members of MMA, distinguished invitees of MMA, and partner organizations who have joined us today, and viewers from all over the globe watching this program live. Have a good evening and thank you.
Thank you, Lex. And sorry, Nandan, it is the old thing. Ambassador Ganapati has been thing, and very warm welcome to you, Mr. Nandan. Pleasure to have you with us this evening. Actually.
No worries at all.
No, I must tell you, apologies for that mix-up. And let me now have the privilege of requesting Ms. Satyamurthy. Mrs. Satyamurthy is again well-wisher of MMA and Policy Matters. Have been our knowledge partner for many events. And I now request Satyamurthy to please share his opening remarks, please. Over to you, Ms. Satyamurthy. Unmute, Mr. Satyamurthy. Unmute, please. Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. As the President said just now, it's a very relevant topic, and particularly for a discussion of this evening's time, where we have got experts speaking on the subject. I will just flag a few questions or rather issues or concerns that crossed my mind over the past so many days. One, when we are talking about reaching out to the world, we have always, India as a nation, and more so in recent years, seem to be doing not enough to carry our neighbors with us. By neighbors, I mean, okay, forget Pakistan, that's a different story altogether. Our other South Asian neighbors and even extended Southeast Asian neighbors. How firmly are they with us or we with them? This question we have to address because as we move, expand globally, as we have always been ambitious of doing, and rightly so, we need to consider that to keep an eye on our backyard. That doesn't seem to be happening all the time. It's still, as some of us here know, there is always a concern in our neighborhood that we are taking them for granted. We have to remember that just as political Delhi and policy making Delhi is tuned to China now, Soviet Union earlier, and the US all the time, all our neighbors have got their eyes, ears, and minds tuned only to India. So unless we carry them with them. We are not going to go too forward and too early. But our ambitions seem to be to do it here and now, not without waiting for 2047 or things like that. Two, overall, when we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, this is a old story of self-reliance from the Nehruvian era. And for the same reasons, we suddenly, in the last 1 month and more, are seeing that the reason that drove us to follow the self-reliance route has emerged. It is no more a political slogan. Even the External Affairs Minister addressing the UN General Assembly yesterday had talked about South-South cooperation all over again. This is the first time I think an Indian dignitary is saying that after the G20 summit in Delhi 2 years back. Is it a flip-flop or is it part of a strategy? And is it going to pay? And where are we in relation to the South-South cooperation? Are we the leader or one of the leaders as we used to be when non-alignment movement was there? So non-alignment, NAM is dead, now fine. But that's a kind of global situation we are faced with. As the EAM said some time ago, we are talking about a robust NAM. But we keep talking, but don't take it forward. We don't seem to have taken anyone into confidence on that matter, supposedly on our own terms. I don't think that's going to take us far. And of course, we have got experts, including Mr. Narayanan and then Nandan, Professor Srikanth, and Indrani Bagchi, giving us addressing the specific areas where the nation needs to address and where we are. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Satyamurthy. And we set the context, and now we're all come to the moment we're all waiting for to listen to the keynote address from Mr. M.K. Narayanan. I think I'll walk miles to listen to him. And I think read his articles in Hindu, and we always get inspired. Before I formally request Mr. Narayanan to deliver the keynote address, may I please ask AV please to formal introduction of Mr. Narayanan. AV please. Hey, voice is not coming here. Can you check, please? Audio is not coming.
I think we can skip this.
Sure. Sure, sir. Hemant, audio is not coming. Let's check, please. Shankar, you check. Okay, you can close it now. Yeah, my apologies, sir. Some technical hitch, and Mr. Narayanan is. Let me have the privilege of introducing him. I think my thing. Distinguished former Indian Police Service officer who served as Indian National Security Advisor from 2005 to 2010, played a key role in India-US Civil Nuclear Agreement. He was also on the 19th Governor of the West Bengal 2010 to 14, and previously headed the Intelligence Bureau twice and recognized for his contribution to the
Recognized
national
for his
security.
contributions to national security, Mr. Narayanan was awarded the Padma Shri in 1992.
Thank you, sir. Over to Mr. Narayanan to deliver the keynote address. Mr. Narayanan.
Thank you. Thank you, Group Captain Vijay Kumar. First and foremost, let me thank the President and all members of the Madras Management Association for inviting me to address this very distinguished audience. I would much prefer to address this audience in person. I belong to an old, not merely an old, a very old generation, and talking on Zoom or talking on Microsoft Teams, etc., is not my cup of tea. From the list of people, including Nandan, and if I may take the liberty of saying so, Srikanth, Kondapalli, I think we prefer to talk to human audiences, not to talk to machine. Indrani is another, she's much younger in this part. But I really thank the organizers for inviting me to speak, and a special word of thanks to Mr. Darsami, the president of the association. I, of course, have a bone to pick with what Mr. Darsami said. So Darsami was extremely. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, strength wise, very clear, sir. Yes.
Mr. Darsami was extremely optimistic about India. He spelled out what we normally hear about India's role in world affairs. I'm not too sure whether that I would agree wholeheartedly with this assessment of where India stands today. But anyway, I'll come to that later. But I do think that this is a subject of great contemporary relevance and importance. And I therefore speak with a great deal of also deliberation. I'm not making off-the-cuff remarks as far as it's concerned. I do agree that I'm in the backwaters of Chennai and not in Delhi, where all policy is made, and Indrani keeps aggravating the situation with her writings. And so I think you must pardon me if I differ or disagree with conventional wisdom in Delhi, at least sitting in Chennai and occasionally moving out of Chennai to other places. I do feel that we need to reset the compass to some extent. It's nice to feel that we are amongst the most important countries in the world. But I do think that nations often make mistakes, and I think the United States is today in that position. But the United States has so much of what I'm also support that it can afford to make mistakes. We, despite our great intellectual capital and wealth, cannot afford to make mistakes. And I think what I'm going to say may turn out to be unsatisfactory from the point of view of what I said, conventional wisdom. But I do hope that you would forgive me for not being as optimistic about where India stands in the emerging global world of emerging global dynamics. Let me start off here by saying that what are the constants that we in this world face today? One, we live in a world where uncertainty is the predominant fact. Whatever you might say, there's nothing certain. When you open the newspaper the next morning, or you listen to a broadcast next morning, we don't know what you're likely to hear. Next, this is a world where we are witnessing constant shifts in geopolitical hegemonies and wide-ranging geopolitical tensions. Additionally, this is a world in which we confront a multitude of disruptive technologies and wherein economic tsunamis are the order of the day. In short, we live in a world where the rule-based international order is no longer in vogue, and it has been replaced, if I may be pardoned for saying so, by shambolic disorder. Before I come to India's role, may I be permitted, Group Captain Vijay Kumar, to try and make a brief survey of the world around us, despite living in a small corner called Chennai. I, for one, believe, and I think that there's many others also subscribe to, that the US, once the leader of the so-called free world, is today a pale shadow of what it was in 1945 at the end of World War II. Also, once a pillar of democratic stability, the US is today grappling with profound problems while maintaining the pretension of being the leader of the democratic world. And if I might seek the indulgence of Professor Kondapalli, I do feel that China, the hegemon that the US acutely desires to confront and possibly eclipse, is meanwhile gaining in strength and importance. The truth, I would like to think, at least from my point of view, is that the US today has no perceived strategy to deal with a China that is constantly involved in unveiling new global initiatives. I find there's hardly any mention in Indian newspapers about what China is up to. I mean, the Indian newspapers, I think, had a few lines about China's latest, I think the fifth of the line, of the Global Governance Initiative. We shouldn't let this pass like that. It lays down China's plans on how the new global rules are to be written. As I said, it is the fifth. And there were earlier the Global Development Initiative and the Global Security Initiative. At the foreign policy level, China has meanwhile succeeded in brokering alliances with countries like Russia, attempted to reach a thaw with countries in its vicinity, such as India, firmly established its presence in Southeast Asia, and has strengthened its relationship with most countries of Asia and Africa. Even while doing so, it maintains a respectable relationship with much of Europe, mainly by way of trade. Am I audible enough? Okay.
Perfect. Stand by, sir. Clear, sir.
Yeah. At the other end, Europe's condition, I would like to say, is pathetic. Its inability to come to the aid of Ukraine in the latter's conflict with Russia has exposed its intrinsic weakness. I think it has a leader. Ukraine, for instance, has a leader today who, I'm sorry to say, is really a pale shadow of what a leader should be. The fact that even with NATO support, Europe and Ukraine have been unable to withstand Russia reflects the current realities in Europe. Coming to the situation in West Asia, if anything, this is bleaker. Israel, with the backing of the United States, has disregarded all civilization norms and is currently engaged in a virtual genocide of the Palestinian people, especially in Gaza. This, unfortunately, as I said, has the implicit backing of the United States. The situation there today is graver than anything that had been seen across several decades. And given my age, I can assure you that this is not written back from history, but from personal knowledge. Furthermore, in the wake of the short Israel-Iran conflict, Israel has made little secret of its desire to destroy Iran, again with the tacit and implicit backing of the United States. Across West Asia, meanwhile, what we are witnessing is a churn of a kind never witnessed previously. The eclipse of the Alawite Syrian regime and the exposure of Iran's weaknesses during the recent Israel-Iran conflict have added to fears of Sunni dominance in this volatile region. Today, the world seems to be at a point where nations like the United States, China, and Russia are all attempting to not merely dominate, but also carve out zones of influence across this region. Coming to Asia, one might say that many regions of Asia may look relatively more peaceful compared to West Asia and Europe. But the internal situation in both Afghanistan and Pakistan, with terrorist groups operating their own fiefdoms, belies this fact of reality. Also, what has contributed towards still more concern, both to the region and the world, is the further rise of the military in the affairs of the Pakistani state. This is well epitomized by the emergence of Asim Munir as the dominant figure, I should say Field Marshal Asim Munir, as a dominant figure in the affairs of Pakistan. It is something that poses a direct threat to the future of democracy across the region. All this in turn directly affects Pakistan's present and future relations with India. The events of April and May this year, first the massacre of Hindu terrorists in Pahalgam in Kashmir, and next the Indo-Pak conflict in May, already reflect the current reality, and we should anticipate a period of heightened India-Pakistan conflicts. I heard the president of the Madras Management Association talk of the significant defeat inflicted by India on Pakistan. There's no such thing as a significant defeat today in the world of warfare anywhere in the world. We need to be on our guard at all times. The Indo-Pak War in May has confirmed that we should constantly be prepared for future conflict of this kind. And also that it is the skies that are going to be the new zone of any future conflict. How success comes to countries may well depend on the best military equipment that one can get. India has its Rafale fighters from France alongside Russia's S-400 and the Barak missile. And these are pitted against Pakistan's Turkish Songa drones and the several variants of Chinese J-10. A little talked about that. One which I think has the greatest potential danger to us is the implications of the Saudi Arabia-Pakistan nuclear arrangement mentioned just a week ago. What is evident is that Pakistan's decision to provide a nuclear umbrella for Saudi Arabia marks a historic turning point in the geopolitics of not only West Asia, but of South Asia as a Sorry, I would like to repeat that. I said the implications of the Saudi Arabia-Pakistan nuclear arrangement are vital, and I don't think we have paid enough attention to this. It marks a historic turning point in the geopolitics of not only West Asia, but of South Asia, especially in the Indo-Pakistan conflicts. Compounding the uncertainty on India's Western Front are the upheavals earlier in Bangladesh and more recently in Nepal. In both countries, parliamentary democracy has been the main victim, and the military, under various garbs, the essential victim. India hence requires to be on its guard to ensure that the transformation of the overall situation and the pressures across the region do not pose a danger to India's future and its progress. As of now, this is still work in progress, but the situation is far from a sanguine one. Listening to what I just said, it would seem that the external situation and the situation in India's immediate neighborhood is fairly grim. But I do not subscribe to the view of many that a dystopian future awaits countries like India. I would instead adhere to the belief that what is happening across the world highlights what some prefer to call the end of modernity. We cannot hence afford to let down our guard, and we should not be carried away by our own euphoria about what lies in the future. Coming to my estimate of how India is placed in this situation, it is here where I think I will be quite at odds with some of you. I would say that there is a tendency in India to highlight India's greatness. India is great, but greatness is not always a fixed constant. In your invite, Group Captain Vijay Kumar, you had raised a question as to whether inconsistencies in the new political arena would put brakes on our national ambitions and goals, geo-economic, geopolitical, and geostrategic. Answering this question is a tall order, especially in the prevailing circumstances. At the risk of hurting Indian sentiment, I would urge India to move away from a strong belief that our role is today critical in determining the future course of world events. It might be much wiser if we in India were to take a more detached view and take steps accordingly. I would further add that it is too early for India to believe that it has already arrived on the world scene. I use the word arrived within quotes. Perceptions domestically regarding India's future are, to my mind, excessively optimistic, to say the least. No doubt on the economic front, and I can understand where the president of the MMA and others are so euphoric about the future. India has emerged as a country to reckon with, having become the fourth largest economy in the world and the fastest growing economy. Also, that India displays a great deal of maturity in both action and thought. Yet, and I would underline the yet, whether this is enough to tide over what I see as a forthcoming turbulence to deal with forthcoming turbulence in the political, economic, and overall global scene has yet to be seen. This is particularly true of the decade 2025 to 2035. India needs to ponder more deeply over whether it possesses the necessary depth rather than being satisfied with the status quo. Do understand that I'm talking of situations that extend beyond traditional conflicts and wars between nations. The coming decade, for instance, is likely to throw up a spate of new challenges, such as pandemics, climate change, and the movement of large masses of people, apart from the existing issues that we have to contend with. These are likely to test the capability and capacity of most nations, and this includes India. While I do not wish to be unduly pessimistic, I do believe that it is good to be realistic, especially about the positioning of India in today's world and in the uncertain global politics of today. For instance, India's relations with the so-called big powers in the world, the United States, Russia, and China, are in a state of flux. No amount of optimism can obviate the fact that India-US relations have slipped dangerously and are at a level where uncertainty is its most prominent characteristic. India's relations with Russia, though reasonably firm, has entered a period where, for want of a better word, I would say there is room for disbelief, perhaps due to some degree of equivocation on India's part in the wake of the Ukraine-Russia war. India's relations with China, which have been unsatisfactory in recent years, resulting in several degrees of concern, again requires careful watching. Notwithstanding the rapport lately seen between Indian and Chinese leaders in Tianjin on the 30th of August this year, this is at best work in progress rather than a settled fact. I will go to Professor Kondapalli's view on this. Added to this is the fact that as far as the pecking order is concerned, India is beginning to be seen among its allies as a junior partner in the troika of China, Russia, and India. Positioning India in the world of today, I wish to additionally point out that while South and West Asia have been beset by problems of varying magnitude for several months, and the US, China, and other powers have been active here, India's absence from a region where it once exercised maximum traction has been deafening indeed. India's non-involvement in events affecting Iran, Syria, and Palestine also highlight the extent to which India has become, for want of a better word, a recessed power across this vital region. All this does impact India's overall image in the Council of the World. India's loss of influence at a time of economic growth cannot be easily explained. At one level, it possibly stems from being out of step with ground realities and of not adapting enough to changing situations. India's improved relations with Europe and the UK at this time counts a little in this context. India withstanding US President Trump's pressure on the purchase of oil from Russia has no doubt been a relief, but has not produced any kind of a dividend. Most glaring of all, as I said a few minutes ago, has been India's retreat from Southeast Asia, West Asia, and Africa. These regions have been India's bailiwick for years. As I conclude, I would say that notwithstanding India's growth and professed leadership of the global South, India today stands at the crossroads of global politics. We need to rectify the situation. Our policy directions need to be firmer and more agile to keep up with current trends across the world. Our neighborhood policy needs a total revamp. Finally, positioning India in today's world demands a complete overhaul of India's strategic thought process. It also requires a new vision and better foresight. I'm sorry to have been pessimistic, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. As usual, so inspiring and insightful. And now we have experts from all the three fields, the three countries, as you mentioned earlier, Russia, China, and USA. Now, before I formally request each one of them to speak for about 15 minutes, then we'll take a lot of questions. A lot of questions already I got online. I think we have some interesting questions, Q&A session immediately after that. Now, may I have the AV of all the three distinguished speakers who are going to be delivering special address. May I have the AV, please?
Ms. Indrani Bagchi is the Chief Executive Officer of Ananta Center, India. A veteran journalist, she served as Associate Editor and Diplomatic Editor at The Times of India, covering foreign policy and global affairs. A Reuters Fellow at Oxford and Chung Linton Fellow at Brookings, Ms. Indrani has also worked with India Today, The Economic Times, and The Statesman. Ms. Indrani is a Fellow of the Kamalnian Bajaj Fellowship and a member of the Aspen Global Leadership Network. Dr. Srikanth Kondapalli is Professor of Chinese Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University and former Dean of the School of International Studies. A leading expert on China, Dr. Srikanth has authored books including China's Military, The PLA in Transition and China's Naval Power, co-edited 6 volumes, and published extensively on Chinese security and foreign policy. Dr. Srikanth has held visiting positions at leading Chinese and Taiwanese universities, is Chair Professor under the Ministry of Defense's Chair of Excellence, and a recipient of the K. Subramaniam Award for Excellence in Strategic and Security Studies. Mr. Nandan Unnikrishnan is a distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, New Delhi, where he leads the Eurasia program. An alumnus of JNU, Mr. Nandan began his career with PTI and served as its Moscow bureau chief before moving to television journalism at Business India's TVI. Since joining ORF in 2004, Mr. Nandan has actively engaged in national and international conferences and lectured at leading institutions in India and abroad.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a profile of outstanding speakers this evening. We're all eagerly waiting. Now, we'll request the speakers in the same order of video. That is, Indrani will go first and followed by Srikanth, Kondapalli, and followed by Nandan. Over to you, Indrani.
Thank you. Thank you, Group Captain Vijay Kumar, and I thank the President and all the members of the Madras Management Association. This is, I think, must be the third such event that I'm speaking at, and thank you so much for calling me back. Mr. Narayanan, what a pleasure it is to hear you and see you. As always, you retain that zest and always there to stir the hornet's nest, and that is wonderful. I've been asked to speak on the U.S. India relationship. I honestly, I haven't seen the U.S. India relationship in such a low position as I see it today. And I'm comparing it. I think the only position where it was worse than this was just after the nuclear tests in 1998. But we are in a place which is very strange and very unusual for India. India had basically believed that Trump 2 and the second administration of President Trump would be a continuation of Trump 1. And personally, I wanted to say that on the day of the election, of the US election, on the 5th of November, I was coincidentally visiting the US. And I was walking down the streets of New York City. And it was patently clear to me then that there was a very significant cultural shift in America that we had not caught earlier, and we did not fully understand it. I don't think we fully understand it even now, because I think that is also an evolving situation. But there is a distinct cultural shift. There is a political shift, of course, and the political shift is there for all to see. From the beginning, India reckoned that we would have trouble on a couple of fronts. We would have trouble on the tariffs front. And this is not the first time President Trump has declared India to be the tariff king of the world. And I think for anybody in the economic sphere, it has been evident that for years, India has relied on heavy tariffs to protect its industry, even when the industry did not need protection. So in a sense, it is a comeuppance to India's economic management. And to that extent, if we probably could have taken some steps in anticipation, but it is what it is. Secondly, the other thing that we should be very clear about is the kind of American politics that is dominating America today. And that is a lot more, and I hesitate to say right-wing or left-wing, but it is definitely a lot more right-leaning, which is fine. We've had right-leaning presidents before, we've had right-leaning administrations before, but this is a very different kind. This is almost a xenophobic right. And that's something we need to be very clear about. It is also very openly and determinedly white. Another aspect of the newness or the unusualness of how America is changing. A third aspect is the much more traditional, deeper Christianity fueled, not just religious sentiment, but also political sentiment. All of these come together in a mix that for a country like India is difficult to grasp all at once. This has implications for the future of America, certainly, but it has implications for the rest of the world. Add to this the mercurial personality of President Trump, the constant quest for personal aggrandizement, for want of a better word, and for global validation of whatever he is doing. An additional layer that complicates matters here is the fact that this is an American president that has no qualms about making money, whether it is for America or whether it is for friends and family enterprises. He has no qualms about money playing or incomes or monetary benefits playing a very signal role in his policies. This is a president that comes with a very interesting mandate, a mandate to weed out immigrants, a mandate to sort of start the process of Atmanirbhar America, and a mandate to basically charge the world for creating Atmanirbhar America. That the world owes America the tools that it needs to become great again. Lastly, this is not under the leadership of President Trump. President Trump is not, while he wants to make America a great power again, he's not the hegemon power. This is not America, the hegemon after that we saw in the last 50 years. He is an isolationist. He's perfectly happy to wall America in. And if you see their latest national defense strategy, that's pretty clear that the defense of the homeland is paramount. He's not in that business of great power competition. That great power competition where America would be seeking to the balance of power, the competition, say with China. He's gone beyond that. I mean, he's not in that he's not in that game. He's perfectly happy to make a deal with China. He's perfectly happy to make a deal with Russia. In fact, he wants to make a deal with Russia. And he wants to make a deal with China. What is complicating matters for him is that the rest of his administration is not there with him yet. But in the middle of all this is the US-India relationship. And to the point that India was in many ways the beneficiary of the idea, which has been around at least for the last quarter of a century, that the US and India relationship was special, consequential, important enough in the world as we look at a growing, aggressive, expansionist China. That is something President Trump does not seem to understand or has rejected. That puts India in a much different position. It basically means that India is less than, maybe sometimes a little more than, all his allies and partners. He has taken the machete to his alliances, to America's alliances. And sometimes it might feel that Trump is singling out India for special treatment. Frankly, if you go to Tokyo, they weep. What they have been forced to do is unbelievable. And why? Because they are in the position that they are, which is an old ally, a military ally of America, terrified of China, and believing that there is no other option, that they cannot possibly stand on their own feet without America holding their hand. They have had to give in to the kind of humiliating agreements on investments in America that are that honestly, if that was given to any Indian government, would have been rejected outright. And it's not just Japan. Mr. Narayanan spoke about Europe. Europe is blinded. Europe has no idea whether it's going or coming. Whether they should defend Ukraine or who should defend Ukraine. And Ukraine is literally holding the entire continent to ransom, because nobody in that continent is contemplating the end of the war. They might be contemplating a ceasefire, but they're not contemplating the end of the war. That has terrible implications for the future of Europe. It does have implications. I mean, whatever Russia may say, Russia is not winning the war. Russia started the war 4 years ago, believing it was going to finish it in a week. It's 4 years. It's a stalemate. We know that. Ukraine and the rest of Europe, they have not allowed a defeat, but there is no Ukrainian victory. There is no Russian victory either. And if we don't actually address the end of the war, this spillover is going to have an additional adverse impact on India. Where are we today with the US-India relationship? As you all know, we are in the middle of a trade negotiation where India is holding on to its traditional red lines. The US is pushing really, really hard, using every lever at its command to force India to open its agriculture sector. They've pulled back on the dairy, but they're definitely pushing on the agriculture sector. So everything which includes Russian oil, Trump doesn't care about Russian oil. Trump doesn't care about Russia. This is a way to push India. And 50% tariffs is a punitive action on India. H-1B restrictions, equally punitive actions. The reason is very clear. The reason is that he wants India to pick up the market for maize and soybean that China refuses to buy anymore. And India has its own reasons for not opening up these sectors, but Trump is pushing. What it has done, it has not only impacted the political relationship between India and the US, but even if the trade deal is done, there is now a sense of a trust deficit with the US that we have, that I think, and Mr. Narayanan has been one of them, that India and the US have worked for a quarter of a century to build that relationship from a place of no trust to a place of consequential trust. We are now heading back to a very different place. Mr. Narayanan spoke about Pakistan and the Saudi-Pakistan pact. The whole idea that Pakistan suddenly became attractive to the US in April only because Trump wanted his family to win from the from a crypto deal in Pakistan is unbelievable. Yes, day before yesterday, President Trump delivered an ultimatum to the Taliban in Afghanistan that he wants the Bagram air base back, which basically means Trump wants to go back into Afghanistan. So we have no clue. I mean, for anybody who thinks that there is a vision, there is a strategy going in, I don't think they know what they're talking about. Privately, President Trump's cabinet members tell Indian officials that they have no interest in Pakistan, but that is not what we see. The very fact that Pakistan now gets to be able to use Saudi money to buy weapons, which, as we know, will always be directed against India, by itself is an affront and is a serious adverse security implications for India. So where do we go? How do we deal with this situation? My sense is that we are prioritizing first the trade agreement with the US, because a priority is actually to bring those tariffs down. Whatever we may or may not say, America is our biggest market, particularly in the areas which are being impacted, which is textiles, gems and jewelry, shrimp, etc. These are heavy employment sectors, and it is very important for India to work out a deal with the US to bring those tariffs down. I see that some change may be in the air, because I've noticed that in the last few weeks, President Trump has not mentioned India when it comes to tariffs, sanctions on countries buying Russian oil. In fact, he has gone after the Europeans, asked the Europeans to sanction the Chinese, but he has very prudently kept India out of this. So I suspect somebody has gone to him to say that this is a relationship that you are literally whistling down the wind for absolutely no reason. The second is for India to rebuild its domestic base in a couple of sectors. One, in manufacturing, to actually add to the manufacturing base that we have, which is not very good. To bring technology back to India, certainly make it easier for technologies to come back to India, to be designed in India, innovation in India. Find smaller, shorter supply chains, more trusted supply chains, because that will continue. It doesn't matter how President Trump wants America to become Atmanirbhar, that's not going to happen. The same way Atmanirbhar Bharat does not mean that we will be producing everything over here. The idea is for us to be doing what we have been trying to do for the last few years, which is build resilient, shorter, trusted supply chains. That project should continue and should continue deeply. Third, on defense, I cannot agree with Mr. Narayanan more that we need to be a lot more forward-leaning. in our defense, not just procurement, but defense. Our defense procurement acquisition system sucks, for want of a better word. And there, the Ops Sindoor, while we prevailed in Ops Sindoor, I think Ops Sindoor also exposed many gaps in our systems, which if we don't address them with a sense of urgency, we might find that the next one becomes a little more difficult. And the next one will happen because Pakistan has now discovered that it has wind beneath its sail, and that wind apparently comes from America. Pakistan doesn't need more than half an opportunity. And the next, we will be looking at another conflict. The third is we need to have a clearer idea of where we should be diversifying our trade and economic engagements with. We should conclude FTA negotiations with both the Gulf countries and Europe. And frankly, we need to be able to have a much clearer trading conversation with America. We are not doing that. We need to be doing that a lot more. I'm going to stop here and happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, madam, for your thought-provoking thoughts. Now, I request Mr. Srikanth Kondapalli to share his insights. Over to you, Mr. Srikanth.
Thank you very much, Group Captain Vijay Kumar. I also want to thank Mr. Satyamurthy for the invitation as well, and to the Madras Management Association and its associates. It is indeed a privilege to be here with, this is my second time with the MMA, and I want to thank the MMA again for this invite. Also, it's a privilege, sir, to listen to you, Mr. Narayanan, and the broad brush that you made on the Indian foreign policy, the emerging role, and the dynamics, global dynamics. My briefing is about China. I'm asked to reflect on the trade deficit, the trust deficit between China and India, and what are the improvements in the bilateral relations that we could expect. List of priorities for improving the ties between the two sides, and China-Pakistan relations, as well as China in Asia and India in Vietnam and Philippines. How does that match? So let me start by saying that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting, 25th meeting at Tianjin on August 31st and September 1, as well as the Beijing military parade, the victory parade as the Chinese used to call. These were two major events that happened in recent times. There is also the phone call that Xi Jinping had with Trump twice in June and about 6 days ago. I think that is also very significant. The initial red lines were about Taiwan in President Xi and President Trump's talks, and the denial of landing for Mr. Lai Ching-te, the Taiwanese president in Los Angeles, was the immediate consequence of that. We do not know what is the content of these speeches, but also we do not know how it is going to impact on India. But there is also a talk that US improvement in relations with China would be problematic for India in the longer run, if that is the case. But I think there is a structural problem between China and the United States. And in the short term, say 2 to 3 years, of course, Trump administration trying to stabilize relations with China for the MAGA movement. But there is also the and then overcome the magnets and rare earth metal deficiency. So in 2 to 3 years' time, they would also like to diversify these rare earth metals, as well as improve the trade and industrial situation in the United States. So I see the long-term conflict between China and the United States intact. And that is a strategic situation, I would guess. Even if Trump is following isolationist policies, this is the major theme that is emerging. In other words, the decoupling and de-risking, both by US and EU, are to stay here. India would have an opportunity here if, and I agree with Indrani that US-India trade talks, if they improve, if they provide some concrete inputs, it is likely to then shift. So that's one broad position that I have. Mr. Narayanan asked about, mentioned about the China's role as a emerging hegemon, and it is gaining strength. I agree, sir, on this. A number of events that have happened this month. The Chinese also made a fourth initiative, global initiative, global governance initiative, in addition to the GDI, GSI, GCI that were mentioned about four years ago. In that sense, the Chinese footprint globally is increasing. They have the Belt and Road Initiative, even though the third summit meeting had scaled down the Chinese role by just offering about $95 billion in the BRI third summit. And then the greening process, and then taking the other criticisms, debt diplomacy, environmental issues, transparency related, and other problems in the BRI. The Chinese are moving slowly on this process, but steadily on the BRI. So the China-centered global networks are increasing in the light of Trump's isolationist policies. And China's influence is also increasing. We see significant Chinese Navy role in Indian Ocean, submarine visits, surveillance ships visits, and it is still the largest trading partner for many Indian Ocean states, 30-odd Indian Ocean states. And China is also enhancing the Himalayan Quad, as well as the Indian Ocean dialogue process in Yunnan province. So there is that effort that China is making in that regard in terms of expanding. The other is, of course, China today is leader in 5G, EV sector, quantum computing, AI, and renewable energy sources. So these will provide, and in addition, of course, the e-commerce platforms. This provides for the Chinese expansion in the global domain, in the economic and others. Of course, there are red herrings. The real estate is down in China. The GDP is down from 10% in 2010 to 5% on an average in the last few years. And with the Trump tariffs, it is expected that China's GDP will grow at around 3% this year. So significant. And most important, 21% unemployment rate in China, urban unemployment. Some suggest around 40%. COVID-related problems are still lingering in terms of the unemployment. It is estimated some 46,000 companies have shut down in China due to COVID, as well as resulting in $800 million of debt. And local governments are actually facing a lot of issues in terms of debts. And the COVID-related unemployment is estimated around 80 million people. And this is a huge socioeconomic and political problem for the Communist Party in China. So in this context, I see India as in a sweet spot. Growth rates this quarter, the first quarter, 7.8%. And if India maintains, despite the headwinds of the tariffs and the other depressing situations across the globe, if India still maintains the growth rates, then it is at a very advantageous position. But China Plus strategy did not really work out in terms of thousands of companies shifting from China. It is estimated that some 77,000 American companies are in China, and only 200 have moved to India and to Vietnam, Indonesia, and other countries. So there is not massive shift to one of the. There are also European companies, some 8,000 companies in China, but there are also problems in terms of arts and the National Intelligence Law of 2017 as a big bottleneck for the Europeans to function in the China market. So this is an opportunity for India here. If the EU-India trade talks improve, UK-India already had the FTA. It could be a major trigger for some collaborations in the industrial sphere. So that would be based on the political leadership's initiative in regard to the EU and others. Japan has some 87,000 companies in China and about 1,300 companies in India. We have not seen the global strategic partnership reflected in these companies. But Prime Minister Modi's visit to Tokyo resulted in that $65 billion pledge, as well as the Shinkansen, the high-speed railway technologies to be transferred to India. So I think those are two big gains. And if these really fructify, we could possibly see the growth rates being maintained. Not just the growth rates, unlike in China, where the demographics are becoming skewed in nature, 37 years is the average age in China, while the median age in India is about 28.2. Again, the political leadership role is crucial here in terms of skill development, providing jobs. The H-1B visa issue need to be addressed by us to attract the talent. That is one definitely a step in that direction. The sweet spot is also about the geographical location of India in the Indian Ocean in terms of the various initiatives that India had undertaken. Look East, Act East, Sagarmala, and other initiatives. So I think that skill development and the other initiatives. So that needs to be furthered in addition to consolidating the voice of the Global South and the G20 meeting in New Delhi before. India will be the BRICS chair next year, and preparations have already begun. I think naming of a Sherpa will be around in next month. So that is the context. As far as the bilateral relations are concerned, I think we are moving ahead towards a precarious stability with China. Precarious because we signed only disengagement and grazing patrolling, but not de-escalation and de-induction of troops. So that is still hanging. But Prime Minister, in his 50-minute meeting with President Xi in Tianjin, mentioned about peace and stability on the border prevailing. So we should expect some normalization happening in the near future. Several things were mentioned. The Manasarovar Yatra has been resumed, direct flights, visas, etc. But there is a balance here. Again, in terms of visas, the Indian embassy consulates are asking the Chinese to give a 1 lakh renminbi. That's about 12 lakh rupees equivalent bank account details in order to get a visa to visit India. So this is probably to avoid young travelers and probably attract more moneyed because generally the Chinese don't eat in the restaurants outside. They carry their noodle packs and so hotel industry may not be benefiting out of the tourists if they. But remember that before COVID, 180 million Chinese visited abroad. Even if India attracts a small portion of this, it would be substantial in number. But we have not seen this trend because Communist Party cells control the tourist agencies, and they divert the traffic towards their friendly oriented countries. We saw China weaponizing tourism for South Korea when it deployed the THAAD, weaponizing tourism for Taiwan when they elected Tsai Ing-wen and Lai Ching-te, the DPP candidates. They have also weaponized tourism in relation to Malaysia and Thailand, where the MH370 and other incidents took place. So we have to be realistic in this on tourism. And so I see there is, China is also balancing, because soon after Dr. Jaishankar's visit in July, they have announced the dam construction, and Premier Li Qiang had gone to Tibet to attend to those dam construction activities. So very high level leadership signaling is there in terms of Tibet. President Xi himself visited Tibet twice, and there is a lot of traction happening on the highways and railways from Sichuan to Tibet and so on. So we have to be prepared for the border stability in the longer run. The other measures for improving ties include, of course, trade and investment. We have not removed the press note number 3, which restricts the Chinese investment in India, even though Finance Minister Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman mentioned about Chinese investment, but she expressed also caution in regard to the Chinese investment. So we may not be able to attract huge investments, and we need to be realistic even in here, because in the last 20 years, the total Chinese investment in India is no more than $8 billion. For an economy of 19 trillion, 8 billion is the Chinese investment. What they're doing is, of course, trying to pressurize India to open up the consumer market for the EV sector as well as for the other consumer durables. It appears that we are making some inroads in this EV sector, etc. MG, you may have seen on the roads, which is a Chinese acquired company, Morrison Garrison. So this is possibly the way that it looks like. But we have blocked the 5G, Huawei 5G in its trials. So no more on the telecom sector. But one of the interesting thing is, both in Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and in Maldives, the Huawei 5G networks are quite, and of course in Pakistan. As part of the CPEC, 1/3 of that is Huawei fiber optics. And we also heard how Rawalpindi was connected to the Western Theater Command in Chengdu with the fiber optics, and a brigadier level officer from the Pakistan Army is stationed in Western Theater Command for live, kind of communication, etc., etc. So we have to be realistic on that front. And Prime Minister mentioned about no double standards on terrorism. This is related to the 1267 committee as well as post-Pahalgam terror attacks. The mention of Chinese role in the 1267 committee of the United Nations. So we should expect more traction in this regard. What are the other areas of improving relations? You may recall that there are 30 dialogue processes between India and China. The strategic dialogue between foreign ministries, the foreign secretaries, the annual defense dialogue, the youth exchange, media to media, think tank to think tank, financial dialogue, steel dialogue, renminbi rupee kind of exchange dialogue. There are so many of these. None of these were resumed so far, which means that in the next year or so, we probably will have more discussions on this. During Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit in August, we have mentioned an expert group, a working group, border management related. But strangely, there was a mention about delimitation of the border. Sir, you have been the special representative for long with the Chinese. I would like to ask a question, sir, Mr. Narayanan. The SR mechanism is to clarify the LAC, but we are using words like delimitation, which is the next step after the clarification of LAC. So it indicates to some progress in the border talks, even though SR mechanism, the 2.5 phases that were over in 24 talks is related to the LAC clarification, but we are using the words like delimitation. So I really wonder if there is a major progress, because after delimitation, it is demarcation, and then the final agreement, and then the parliamentary exchange of ratifications on the border. So are we in this really exciting stage of border settlement? So I'm not clear about this, so I'm raising that issue as a major, because that has triggered a lot of uncertainty in bilateral relations between India and China. And the last question that was addressed to me was in relation to China's role in South Asia and India's role in Southeast Asia. We did see China's role increasing substantially after Prime Minister Oli's visit last December. They formally joined the BRI, even though they joined the BRI in 2016, but concrete steps were undertaken with the announcement of various initiatives on the BRI. But now that Gen Z has removed Prime Minister Oli and the turbulence in Nepal, we probably will be affected. And I agree with you, sir, on the neighborhood becoming grim in terms of the kind of incidents we saw in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, in Maldives. Although Maldives is kind of stabilized with the India Out campaign being removed and recent visit by the Prime Minister. So we have some semblance of neighborhood, restructuring that is happening. So I stop here by saying that actually India is in a sweet spot with the growth rates. And if the growth rates are to be maintained, we probably have more of these things to be resolved. Infrastructure, there is so much of investment in the road, railway, and the shipyards, fiber optics, so on. There is also the manufacturing sector has not really taken off. We expected this to go to 24% of our GDP, but it is still around 18-19%. So that is the problematic areas. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Srikanth, and we'll come back to you with a lot of questions that come to you. Now I request Mr. Nandan Unnikrishnan to share your insights, sir, and may I please restrict the timing to 10 to 15 minutes so that we'll have more time for the Q&A. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate your understanding.
Thank you, Group Captain Vijay Kumar. Let me start by thanking you for inviting me again. Your invitation alone would have been enough, but when Satyamurthy joined your invitation, the request became absolutely irresistible. Thank you to the Madras Management Association for once again inviting me to speak. Sir, Mr. Narayan, it was a pleasure to listen to you, your sweeping view of the world. All I can say in short is Delhi misses your wisdom. You would be a great contribution to the discussions in Delhi.
Delhi fellow.
Well, let's restrict to Delhi at this point of time. Of course, the people who preceded me, Indrani and Srikanth, I don't need to say anything about them. My respect for their expertise is very well known, and their insights into both the US and China were enlightening as usual. I have been asked to speak on Russia and Indo-Russian relations in the wake of the onslaught from the United States, which is what I will do, and I'll hopefully finish in about 7 to 10 minutes. But prior to getting into Indo-Russian relations, I think we have to spend a couple of minutes looking at what is happening in Ukraine, in the war between Russia and Ukraine. And here I'm afraid I will differ with Indrani fairly, literally complete opposite, for the simple reason that I don't think anybody in the world today sees any option but a Russian victory on the ground, and I'm talking of a military victory. The problem in our understanding why it's a Russian military probably stems from the fact that we are not clear as to what Russia views as a victory. And Russia does not view, in this particular context, territory as a victory. The Russian view is very simple. Ukrainian national neutrality, in other words, no membership of NATO, and an incapability by Ukraine to either become a platform or to be able to launch any attack against Russia in the future. I think Russia has reached a stage where those two objectives, those two primary objectives, are, I would say, 95% achieved. So I really don't see an option on the ground to a Russian victory. In this context, of course, Europe is the one, as many have mentioned already, Europe is the one player that needs to readjust its worldview. Mr. Trump, by the pivot of the last 48 hours, clearly indicates that he understands that Russia is winning, and he's decided to wash his hands off so as not to be blamed for this. And he's decided that Ukraine can win back all its territory with the help of Europe, and he's happy to supply any arms they want, but he's not going to get beyond that. So this is the rough context in which I am going to look at Indo-Russian relationships. I also disagree about the fact that Trump is seeking any kind of deal, economic or otherwise, with the Russians. Trump is seeking to keep Russia as distant as possible from China, but that does not mean that he is necessarily looking at having a serious engagement with the Russians. In fact, let me be very clear. I believe Trump is not averse to the war in Ukraine continuing if Europe is handling it. He would like Russia to be distracted in Europe and stay away from China while he concentrates on dealing with the challenge that China poses to the United States. His vision of the US, of the challenge of China, may not be one that impresses us. But the point is, he looks at it from a very different perspective than what we look at it. So this is something that the Indians have to factor in when looking at the Indo-Russian relationship. One of the primary problems that I think today stand in the way of a serious economic development between India and Russia is the question of sanctions. I'm not talking of the latest 25% tariffs or 50% tariffs on oil that will get negotiated and will get removed. India will also adjust. We will substantially reduce the purchase of oil from Russia from its current levels. And that is understandable because the United States today is, in many ways, a far more important relationship for us, particularly given our developmental agenda. But we have to keep in mind that we cannot totally eschew our relationship with the Russian Federation. And therefore, steps will have to be taken to keep that pot boiling, as it were, to be colloquial. And in that context, I'll come back to the war with Ukraine, the Russian war with Ukraine. I think India needs to recalibrate its understanding of where that war is, what kind of outcome we are going to see in that war, and that recalibration will be required in the context of, for example, if I was a gentleman sitting in the Indian Foreign Office, the question I would be asking myself is there any negative that I see in a Russian victory in Ukraine? Any negative for India? And second question I'll be asking myself, is there any negative I see? Is there any positive I see in Russia not having a victory in Ukraine? And the answers to these questions would be the ones that would be determining the recalibration of my current policies towards Russia. But overall, I would say that we have handled the situation well. We are equal contributors in military terms to both sides. We are equal contributors in economic humanitarian aid to both sides. I'm advisedly saying both sides. And of course, on the economic front, our purchase of Russian oil is of immense help to the Russians, given that they need areas to market their oil. There was a question that Mr. Group Captain Vijay Kumar had asked me to look at, is about the long conversation Mr. Putin had with Mr. Modi during the SCO summit, and how will the relationship between the Russians, the Indians, and the Chinese develop in the context of BRICS and SCO and other things. Well, I think I personally am skeptical about RIC at this point of time. I mean, the Russia, India, China relationship, because the India-China relationship is still at a very nascent stage in terms of getting on its feet after the trials and tribulations that followed the Galwan in 2020. But I'm also very clear that if any Asian security architecture is to be evolved to give some stability to this area, then it would be impossible without Russia, India, and China coming to some kind of common page of understanding, even if it is the barest minimum. So to that extent, I think the three countries would have to interact with each other and try to evolve their views to a level of understanding what is the basic minimum of each other's concerns. As far as BRICS and SCO are concerned, I don't think that the euphoria about these presenting alternative visions of the world and all are valid at this point of time yet. Yes, both of them are platforms in which countries are voicing their unhappiness with the current rules of the game in the world. But what is more interesting is that the rule maker till now, the United States, is also unhappy with the rules of the world as they exist today and wants to rework them. So therefore, this flux is, as Mr. Narayan said, a grim time. But I agree with him, there is no need for us to be pessimistic for the simple reason, and this is where I hope we should understand. I am grateful that we are not yet a great power. I am grateful, and I agree with Mr. Narayan, that we tend to attribute to ourselves far greater importance than we actually have on the world stage. And we should be grateful for that, because there are some choices that we are not being asked to make, and we don't have to make them. There are pressures being put on us to make us make certain choices, but we have to be very clear in our own minds that these are not necessarily choices that we have to make. We have to be governed by our national interest, and our national interest has to be driven by our domestic policies, by the need for domestic development. And the final thought I leave is, If we have flawed domestic policies, we will never have a flawless foreign policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I think we have over 720 participants watching it live on various social media portals. I have a number of questions. I will go through the questions one by one, and it's addressed specifically to the distinguished speakers. Wherever general questions, I will do it, and whoever is willing could take. The first, I'll go to Mr. M.K. Narayanan. So the question addressed to you is from Mr. Raghunath in Chennai. How do you assess the strategic implications of the recent Pakistan-Saudi Arabia Defense Pact? Could it significantly alter South Asia's security environment and India's threat perceptions? You mentioned about it, but you would like to elaborate.
No, I did mention about it. I think it's too early to speculate as to how far it would go and to what extent it would go. But very clearly, I would say it is one of the black spots that has arisen in recent times. We thought that we had a warm relationship with Saudi Arabia. I myself made several trips when I was NSA, and King Abdullah was there, Salman's father. And there was a great deal of understanding that at least the father displayed as far as India was concerned. And this step, I think, is certainly, I mean, we will not admit it, we will not acknowledge it, I know, but it clearly is a major slap in our face. I mean, at the risk of being actually highly negative, I think we have tended, our foreign policy in recent years has tended to spend too much time on wooing the United States. We have forgotten, as I did mention, that our major areas of interest were West Asia, South Asia, and parts of Southeast Asia, and all that has been neglected. And I say that with a sense of determination. I know that the present dispensation will be that. We have neglected it. A whole lot of things have taken place in West Asia, and we are nowhere in the picture. Foreign policy is essentially a matter not of talking about multipolarity and that kind of thing. It's nursing countries and building relationships of various kinds. We have failed, and we have failed signally in that. I think the Saudi Pakistani nuclear umbrella pact is, the implications are serious. It's definitely a slap in our face, and I think we need to be extremely careful. And I think we need to move Saudi Arabia back into at least a situation of being equidistant, if not our friend.
A follow-up question from Mr. Ansari from Nagpur on a similar lines is, his question is, given your experience as a National Security Advisor, NSA, what diplomatic or security measures should India consider to prevent being strategically sidelined by emerging Pakistan Gulf alignments?
Well, I'm no longer in government, and I hope you would not convey. I think Indian diplomacy has got entwined or into a belief that it is, as I use the word, arrived. We think that we are now amongst the powers of the world, and we are. Look at where we were in 1953. In 1953, when India did not count, when we had to wait every day for PL-480 ships to give us our food. We had no guns, we had no things like that. Yet we were negotiating the Korean Treaty. Today, with all the, and as Mr. Kondapalli, Srikanth Kondapalli was mentioning, and there are several aspects of what we have to be proud of. Yet we have not. Our foreign policy has not kept pace with our economic and other. Largely because I think there's been a tendency in recent years, maybe interested during, even when I was in the Prime Minister's office, of trying to tell people how to do things and talk about it. I think we talk too much. We talk too much, we do very little. I mean, the Galwan episode, for instance, I think is a major foreign policy failure. The incident there, none of you know what happens on the border. I have trekked on the border as a young officer, and way back in 1959, 60, the issue these are constant issues, border issues, they don't the skill is in trying to prevent a small incident becoming a major issue. And I think that's happening all the time in recent years because we are. And since we spend so much time talking about diplomacy and new policies, and you're talking all the time, diplomats are talking the best language. Nobody talks English any longer in the world, excepting Indians. So I think we are completely out of step with reality. We don't know when to bend, and we do. I mean, if I know Indrani Bagchi made a very stirring speech on what we need to. I have an even simpler answer to it. If we have got many of these big business houses that we have, the Ambanis and Adanis, which are mollycoddled by the Indian establishment, why don't they invest in the United States as Japanese have done? The Japanese, I mean, we may say, oh, they gave in, they ducked, or they sort of. Mr. Trump is trying to get as much money as possible. That's what we understand by diplomacy. You can talk about him. I don't think he understands anything about BRICS. He understands about anything else, and he kind of stuff. He understands money. Then deal with money. If you don't know how to deal with it, you will get many of our financiers to deal with it. I don't think the Ministry of External Affairs understands anything about this. They're still talking about Gladstone and Palmerston and whatnot. I think there is a major gap in our foreign policy, which I think we need to address.
Thank you, sir. Very strong, great insights. And the question from Rajiv addressed to Mr. Srikanth Kondapalli, sir. He's addressed two questions which I combined it. What he says, with India balancing Quad, BRICS, and SCO, do you see India at risk of strategic overreach or alignment advantage in complex global order? You also wonder how might China view India's growing role in the Quad, especially in the light of Beijing continuing support to Pakistan, and what counter strategies could India adopt in this context? I
would like to add a question to this question. Why are we in Quad?
Yes, sir. Over to you, Mr. Kondapalli.
Thank you very much. I think we do not know whether the Quad meeting is going to be held this year, meaning President Trump will be able to visit India or not. But possibility of Vice President Vance visiting or a virtual meeting is also not out of the possibilities. Yes, indeed, the situation is in a flux. There are a lot of issues that India is currently grappling with. So I think this is a little bit complicated matter. A lot of things are still in the evolving stage. But we see that we have two parallel tracks happening. One is on the tariff-related issues where there is a lot of negative news. But we also see that NASA and ISRO are collaborating on the recent launches. In fact, coinciding with the tariff announcement by the Trump administration, the next day we had the NASA and ISRO collaborating. Secondly, we have the exercises conducted in Alaska. We have also the defense cooperation related matters being discussed. So these two are running on two parallel tracks. The economic issues on one track, the defense cooperation on the other track. We signed long ago the BECA, SISMOA, and other agreements, which suggest that things are moving on in that direction, and in the defense related and time. The Malabar exercises are on track, and the other defense related things are on track. So this is a fluid situation. It is difficult to maneuver through at the moment.
Thank you, sir. The question which has come on the group also is from Edward. you want to know what I wish to know the China's AI brain research. What is the status of it? Whether they succeed or not? What actions? Very briefly, because we got a lot of questions. Very briefly, because come on.
I think I answered that in the
Oh,
chat.
answer is okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll pass. We'll pass. Now the question is from Jay from Bangalore, addressed to Indrani Bagchi. He says, with US revising H-1B1 visa rules, what new terms of consequences do you foresee for Indian IT sector, unskilled professionals, and what diplomatic measures could India use to mitigate impact or simultaneously strengthening the innovation and reduce over dependence on US opportunities? You mentioned your speech briefly about this, but we would like to elaborate, madam.
Atmanirbhar.
Atmanirbhar.
So, just to say that the H-1B visa remains a sovereign right of any nation. And for an H-1B visa seeker, it is not like he or she is a representative of the Indian government. It's a choice that they make to go to America to live there as an H-1B visa. If you have a problem there, just go somewhere else. And the fact that there is that President Trump wants to make it more difficult to issue H-1B visas is not unique to President Trump. Just by the way, if you remember back in the day, Barack Obama actually made Bangalore into a verb. He said we did not want it to be Bangalored. That was the day. That was back then, and they have been trying to reduce Indian H-1B visas. You know, it's a question of it's an individual's question. I think there is a fairly robust technology ecosystem in India, or there is the rest of the world to choose to be. H-1 visa is not a right. It is a country. They can choose that back. Yes, you might say that they will suffer, but that's okay. I mean, that's on them. That's not on India. It's not Indian. I mean, for decades, India, I think, made a mistake by putting H-1B on the diplomatic talking points. We should not have done it. The only reason to put that on a diplomatic talking point is the fact that foreign remittances to India from the US still outstrips every other source of remittance. That was the only reason. But otherwise, it's your personal choice. If you want an H-1B visa, next time somebody applies for it, I hope they can shell out the $100,000.
Many of them don't even get that much of salaries annually.
And I mean, really, it's like saying that I have a right to come to India just because you have a visa. There's no right. It's a sovereign.
True, madam. Thank you. Thank you. Now we have a question from Mr. Srivatsava addressed to Mr. Nandan Unnikrishnan. So his question to you is, India has benefited by continuing to import discounted Russian oil despite US and European pressure. How sustainable is this approach for India in the medium term? We also want to know, could India defense of Western sanctions on Russian oil be seen as a beginning of more assertive India independent foreign policy? And what does this mean to India, US, Europe relations? And you also want to know, today the Commerce Minister said they are going to import oil from US, actually. So what are all these implications for India today?
Sustainability is basically a question of numbers. I think India will have to carefully calculate what the tariffs mean for India economically. What are the benefits that we get from buying Russian oil? And juggling of these figures should get you to the point where we are today. That is that we are reducing the purchases of oil from Russia because obviously we have calculated that we need to assuage the hurt feelings of the United States by buying a little bit more oil from them. So we will play this game. We will balance here and there. There is no doubt that cheap Russian oil, and now there will be greater discounts, will benefit India. But we will have to be very careful about upsetting the apple cart with the Americans. As far as the Europeans are concerned, I think we are overestimating what Europe can do, because Europe is going or is on the edge of a recession. They cannot afford to have prices at the petrol pumps go up. And the prices at the petrol pumps are kept where they are because of their imports of Indian petroleum products. So therefore, I think Europe is not so much of a problem. The United States, we have to be careful with.
Thank you, sir. There's a common question, maybe whoever would like to take it. This has come from again from Raghunath. How can India strike a sustainable balance between its relations with US, Russia, and China without compromising the strategic autonomies? Anybody could.
Indrani wanted to add something to the earlier question.
Yes, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that we now have an interesting bargaining chip, which is India's ability to refine oil into petroleum products. That is, we even have supplied diesel to Ukraine and out of Russian oil. The second is you remove the idea that Russian oil is sanctioned is all wrong. Russian oil, there is no sanctions on Russian oil. There's a price cap. And India has utilized that price cap as it should. We cannot be put into this false moral position that we cannot buy Russian oil. But much more important is if we don't buy oil, then it's not like the rest of the world is awash in oil. If you contract oil buys from the US today, the US is currently tapped out. It will be a few years before you will be able to take the deliveries on that particular oil buy. The same as for LNG. So it's not like, and the world is no longer in a place where it can take a $20 hike in oil prices, which is exactly what would happen if we shut out Russian oil and moved to the Middle East oil. In fact, if we have to remember that it was because oil prices, of the fear that oil prices would go through the ceiling, that the former Biden administration actually did speak to the Indian government at the time to say that they would be fine with India buying Russian oil. And we tend to forget this, obviously, because Trump is on our heads, and also because every European country sort of put that in their talking points to India. But the fact remains that India's first responsibility is to its own people. We would not have been able to take the inflation that would have happened if we did not buy Russian oil. So I don't frankly buy this thing that there is so much of oil around that if I stop Russian oil, I'll suddenly find oil everywhere else in the market. Iran, for instance, is out of the market. Venezuela is out of the market. So there remains really not that many sources of oil. So
It's a question from an IIT Madras professor. He says, it's addressed to Mr. Narayanan. Having been NSA during the Indo-US nuclear deal, what lessons can India draw to maintain autonomy while deepening the partnership? Your tips to the people who do matter. How should India strengthen its internal security and intelligence capabilities to better support its global strategic ambitions?
I won't answer the last question because I was in charge of internal security for nearly 40 years. Oh, I don't want to comment on that. But I think the real problem is, and to some extent been addressed by Indrani, what is diplomacy? Diplomacy is the art of the possible. We need to have a give and take. The problem is, I think, in more recent years, because we have given ourselves the belief that we are a power that has that we are part of the reckoning, that we can do what we like, and that we need to negotiate like maybe the United States negotiates with China or somebody else. Let us understand we are dependent on what the world forces are capable of. I feel that India has lost the art of engaging with countries, sort of ducking their head when necessary, stop preaching to the world how it should run its affairs. The very fact that all the countries around India are not friendly to us. I mean, everybody reads messages in this. So if you're a great power, that's not. I mean, in America, the United States is numero uno. So people are willing to listen. We are not. And we must understand that. However great individuals may think that they are, we are not. We have no friends across South Asia, across West Asia, part of North Asia. No, so you are in a position where you need to use your diplomatic skills, and you've got enough talent for that. But that cannot come by. I think in the last many years we have got a superiority complex. I think we need to give that up. We need to know when to bend, how to submit, and if you, as I think Indrani said, you need oil, you need to get oil at the lowest prices. If President Trump feels unhappy about it, see what we need to do. Look at what Pakistan did. Pakistan has pandered to Trump. Oh, you may say, oh, it's a weak nation. What rubbish. It has pandered to Trump's desires. It has offered him all kinds of things. Well, of course, we are talking about what Gladstone did and what Palmerston did and whatnot. We are not in that area. You use your strength, you use your skills, and we have got immense strength and immense skill. But don't think that you can talk the language of what happened in the 1930s and the 1920s and whatnot. You're dealing with in the 2030s and whatnot, and therefore, please adjust your life. The India-US nuclear deal, probably one of the most difficult things, was possible only because I was a leader of the team. I can assure you that this would not have been possible but for, because publicly we claimed how brilliant we were. But the fact of the matter is President Bush was somehow came to realize that this would help India. And he felt that India was a friendly country. That's all. He felt that Manmohan Singh was a good man. He was willing to. So whatever the Department of Energy, the Department of State, everybody else tried to do this. And we got the entire support of the Indian community in the United States. I mean, we are not using any of those strengths. We are completely sort of separated from, we're all divided, the country. So I think we need to go back to the old rules of the game. Bend when you have to bend, jump when you have to jump. We have the skills, but I think we are sometimes, like many of us have outgrown our capabilities. And that's the only thing I have to say. I know it is jarring. It's an old man talking about it, but I don't know what else to say. Thank you.
Brilliant, sir. In the context of today's theme, India emerging role, evolving global dynamics, I want each one of you give your final thoughts just for in a minute, less than a minute. With Indian economic cloud growing, what steps should be taken to translate the economic strength into global influence? Just your thoughts on this. Start with Nandan.
Sure. I personally think that India's primary challenge is not external, it's internal, it's development. If we want to be a great power, and we should aspire to that, the only way we have towards that is growth, growth, and growth. But we have to keep in mind, and this has been the problem that we've faced in this country for some time, is that our growth is very uneven. And we are not unable to create that necessary trickle-down effect. So therefore, maybe That is an area that we need to concentrate in. Secondly, it's not the government that's going to create more jobs. It is the ability of the government to create a level playing field for others, for private sector, to create jobs. So you cannot have a skewed sort of attitude towards the private sector where one section gets concessions at the expense of everyone else. I think a level playing field, encouragement of the private sector, and growth, that is the answer.
Thank you, sir. I think we have come now. Indrani, you would like to say 30 seconds your thoughts on this, especially in multilateral forums. Actually. How can India?
Well, the entire global multilateral system is to be redefined. I mean, the UN was ineffective, has been ineffective for a long time. WTO has been ineffective for a long time. WHO has been ineffective for a long time. So, honestly, I don't think the old-fashioned ways of the multilateral system can survive. We are in a place today, we don't know what the future holds, but for the present, I think the plurilateral systems that we are building or have been building is what will sustain, and that is something that we should put our attention to.
Thank you. Srikanth, what your final thoughts on this?
I think I agree with Nandan on the economic focus that we should have. Out of 4 trillion, we have about 1 trillion in exports and imports. And if we have, like China, 40% of our exports, and they have 40% of exports and imports as the GDP, and their footprint has increased partly because of this. And ours is 1/4 of the GDP in terms of exports and imports. So I was just trying to say that if our economic growth rates increase, and as a consequence, the exports and imports increase substantially to at least 30 to 40% of our 40% of our GDP, then our footprint also increases in one form or the other. You have seen the Voice of Global South 3 meetings. You have seen the multilateral meetings conduct, BRICS, SEO, and others. In the SEO, we have a different agenda now. As the Prime Minister mentioned, addressing all the SEO government leaders, he said we are going beyond the government leaders in startups, in Buddhism, innovation, youth empowerment. So this is a different agenda we have initiated in SEO. It may not bear fruits because most of the SEO governments are authoritarian, and it's pretty difficult to get through the civil society in these places. So I think we need to wait for the economic growth rates to take and result in prosperity.
Thank you, Mr. Srikanth. I think we have come to end and 2 hours.
No, I mean,
please, sir, please.
Group Captain Vijay Kumar, since I had the first word, can I have the last word?
Please, sir, go ahead, sir.
I having spent now, I think, amongst all the people here, spent more years in this area. I think we need to strengthen the India, Russia, China bonds. I think that, I mean, these are, I mean, definitely China and India are the 2 of the oldest civilizations. Russia has always been up front. From the time in 1962 when I first went to.
So you unmute. You unmute yourself, sir. Rajaram, can you unmute? I think it's accidentally got muted. Mr. Narayanan.
Yes.
Got it, sir.
Sorry, no, coming back to the point, I'm saying that it's important that 2 of the greatest civilizations of the world, the Chinese and Indian civilizations, must find a way of coming to terms. I think, unlike, I mean, of course, I bow my head to Professor Kondapalli and all that. I don't think that China and India are enemies in any sense of the term. It depends on us as to how we manage these relations. Russia has been a true and tried friend of India. So I think we need to strengthen this. And with that, I think everything will fall into place in many ways. Just as I mentioned, said, where are we in as far as sport? What is our interest in sport? Are we going to send the Indian Navy to the Pacific Ocean to fire at Chinese ships? I think we've completely lost our bearings. If these three, what I call civilizations, can work together, I think everything else will follow. Indian ability to do so much, and we'll eclipse everyone after that, rather than get involved into whether we are part of BRICS or whether we are part of SARC, or whether we are SARC will take anyway. So my point is, this is the last word. I think we must work toward. I think we need Professor Kondapalli to work much harder on him. He has all the facts. I mean, he says China isn't in a sweet spot. It has its problems. Where we can help them, we can shoot them. And we can. I mean, when Putin was president and when Jawaharlal was prime minister, kind of thing, nobody talks about it. There was an agreement which we arrived at that point, in which we talked about saying that there will be no change in the transfer of populations at all. They built on some of these things rather than talking in terms of American diplomacy or European diplomacy. So I think that's what I would say should be the take for this meeting.
Thank you, distinguished guest this evening, guest speakers, and brilliant evening. And so many people are watching this, over 800 or thousands will watch over a period. And I'm quite sure that each one of them would have become more wiser, because every day we read different newspapers, we get different insights, and totally confused what one should go. That's why we thought we'll do this program, and at least people, especially the corporate sector, will get some ideas, especially they're going to. They're worrisome, especially the H1B, are not going to really impact in a big way in the long run with Atmanirbhar. Thank you so much, each one of us. I think you have been distant to honor and the great what you shared. We have got a digital memento for each one of you. What we do is, through the digital memento, we do a lot of work, CSR work with poor schools, and on behalf of you, we'll present books to these poor children, which will be thing because of which you come and do a speaking. Can I have the memento, digital memento, please, Hemant? Yes, this is what we do, sir. Mr. Narayanan, on your behalf, we'll be contributing this book to underprivileged children, and we sincerely appreciate your time and great insights what you have done, and we'll always really appreciate your there, and we look forward to seeing you more at MMA. Can I have the next memento, please?
No. Thank you for not sending me a plaque. I have so many plaques that I don't know what to do with them.
Yes. The next one, Hemant, this I think we got for Indrani Bagchi is there. We'll send it across to you. This plaque, and also show the pictures of what we are giving to the children underprivileged. We work with a couple of schools in and around our MMA. Next one, please. This for Srikanth Kondapalli, and next one, please. Yeah, Nandan. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for being
Thank
with me.
Thank you.
And till we meet again. Bye and good night, and we'll keep in touch with you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks to each one.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Good night, sir.